Countdown to the last comic shop in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey, it's now time for your favorite comic book podcast, The Last Comic Shop!
That's right. We are stacking the buck bin and opening the shop up for newbies to help them find their way under the comic book tent.
And we're keeping the lights on for those oldies. Wanted to help them level up by showing them maybe some stuff they might have missed along the way.
And I'm the host with the most, Andy Larson, and I'm joined by Chad Smith and J.A. Scott. And on today's program, we're kicking off the Halloween season. Yes, it's that special time of year where people stuff their faces with candy and put on creepy costumes and try not to have their house's toilet paper. It's a wonderful time where fall is in the air and everybody is drinking pumpkin spice things. We've got no pumpkin spice for you, but we've got great comic books. And on today's program, that's kind of got some creepy, eerie flavor to it. It's called Once and Future out of Boom Studios. And it's got a zombie King Arthur?
Yeah. Right. What if King Arthur was zombies?
It works. Zombies are great for the Halloween season. By the way, real quickly, guys, favorite zombie movie?
I'm an Army of Darkness guy.
All right, the Deadites. There you go. J.A.?
Oh, I mean, modern, I would probably go with 28 Days Later.
Yeah.
The Danny Boyle film.
Absolutely.
That's the running zombies.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, zombies that actually can move.
Ooh.
My pick is, I'm a real big fan of the original Night of the Living Dead, of course, but another one that doesn't get a lot of play, which is really great, is White Zombie. I actually covered that on my blog this week, and that one's got Bela Lugosi. And it actually doesn't deal with, like, the zombies that eat brains and stuff. It's more of the traditional voodoo zombies, you know, but it's still great. You should check that one out. It's also in public domain, so you can, like, watch it anywhere.
There you go.
On YouTube.
Hey, can I change my pick?
Okay.
I don't really think Army of Darkness is a zombie movie. I don't know what I was thinking. No, my pick for favorite zombie movie is I'm going to go with some local flavor and say Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah.
When it was filmed at the Monroeville Mall, Andy and I went to college with the girl whose dad was the zombie who gets his head chopped off by the helicopter. And I've met a lot of the people involved with that movie over the years. And so just by virtue of the personal connection, Dawn of the Dead is my pick.
Oh, it is a good one, too. And speaking of good ones, on today's program, we've got a lot of good answers from our fan base, because it is now time to recap some Twitter polls. Yes, as you may or may not know, but hopefully you do, every Wednesday, J.A. Scott is lovely enough to put out a Twitter poll out on Last Comic Shop, and it's now time to kind of go over them so that we can see what the results were and keep you up to date. So, J.A., we've got about 6 polls to cover on the opening segment, right?
Yes, we got about 6. We're going to go through some of these faster than others because some of them were no-brainers.
No-brainers and zombies.
Our first poll, this was out of the week when we were looking at the jamokes that were in Spidey's second-tier villains gallery. We went, who is the best first-tier, top-tier Spider-Man villain? The options were Venom, Green Goblin, Mysterio, and Doc Ock. And I will just say that Venom, Mysterio, and Doc Ock all scored about the same, and Green Goblin almost got 50% of the vote.
It was
He's the right choice.
Yes.
It was his vote to lose, to be honest. But I was actually very surprised at that. I was surprised that Doc Ock didn't get more votes. I was surprised that Venom didn't get more votes. I know that I voted for Mysterio, but I'm just partial to that fishbowl-headed guy.
And I have to admit, I put Mysterio in because I would not have heard the end of it had I not put him in with you and your love of Mr. Fishbowlhead.
Well, that does bring up a good question, and I'll bring in our Spider-Man aficionado, Chad. I think you can agree with the Green Goblin and Venom and maybe Doc Ock, but if you were to pick a fourth one, would you have gone with Mysterio or somebody else?
Oh, that's really tough. Because, yeah, you have your top 3. I don't know if any of the other Sinister Six guys, level up to that top tier. Do you pick somebody like Moreland, who's been a modern like maestro of Spidey villainry? No, because he sucks. Where do you go for a fourth option?
Not
a lot
Carnage.
Of years.
Carnage is like a second-tier Venom, so...
I was going to say you have one letter too many. Let me think. Who's the fourth?
I was struggling too. I mean, you wouldn't do Vulture, you wouldn't do Electro, you wouldn't do Sandman. Kingpin maybe, but Kingpin's very Daredevil.
No, this is the pick that would rival the Green Goblin, but it is the only other option that makes sense, and it's J. Jonah Jameson.
Oh, very good. I like that. That's very good. Well, moving on to the next poll. This was our Kirby week when we looked at New Gods. So then, if New Gods are DC's Kirby creation, what is the best Marvel New God, quote unquote, that Kirby made? Choices were Galactus, Thor, Kang the Conqueror, and Gorgon, who got 0 votes. No love for
With his
for
giant
Gorgon.
stompy feet? Oh, man.
Right. Cloven hooves.
Since we've been polling, this one had the most percentage to the winner.
It was Antlerhead, right? Like, nobody's going to beat Galactus, right? Yeah, he eats planets. Like, how are you going to compete with that?
Yeah, he took 71% of the vote, with Thor a healthy 24%, and then Kang in a very distant third.
Oh, yeah.
5%.
He devoured that vote.
I know. It's a tough subject for me, though. I recently passed on the Marvel HasLab $400 Galactus figure that's 32 inches tall.
Don't get me started on HasLab. Don't get me started on that.
All right. I was surprised, though, you didn't include Silver Surfer on your list of New Gods, because he is cooler than Black Racer. Because he rides a surfboard and not skis.
Yes. That will be a poll. Superheroes who get around who need some bit of furniture and or accoutrement to fly around.
Superhero transportation.
And if you have a Black Racer, you're going to need 2 poles. That's terrible. Moving on.
Our next poll got the most votes ever for a poll. It was the best DCEU movie that should be made. And apparently, the internet is overrun with Booster Gold fans. They just came out of the woodwork for this one. It was either, do you want to see a Booster Gold movie, a Flash movie, a Green Arrow movie, or a Martian Manhunter movie?
There was no choice in this. I voted for Booster Gold, just simply because maybe Blue Beetle would show up, and that would be the awesomest movie ever. He's got skeets. He's got that awesome schmarmy attitude. Yeah, Booster Gold's the right choice here. Chad, who did you vote for?
It's all Booster. He uses charisma. Not much else. Well, he might use other things, but charisma's the main thing. That's why I go Booster Gold.
You gonna vote for Martian Manhunter? He's as boring as a brick other than eating those Oreos all the time.
He didn't even work in the Justice League movie. He waited until everything was done. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm here.
And that's why I voted for him, because I wanted to see what the heck he actually does.
All right, moving on.
Best Hulk. Green Hulk, Joe Fixit Gray Hulk, Red Hulk, or Professor Hulk?
Chad, who did you vote for?
I voted for a losing effort in this one. I went Professor Hulk. That's my jam.
That's right. You are a huge fan of that Peter David run. I won't lie. I went with Joe Fixit, and I tried to get people on that Joe Fixit train. There's nothing cooler than Gray Hulk. He's got the attitude. He's not as strong, but he's awesome sauce. I love him.
Yeah. Anytime you can get a Hulk in a pinstripe suit, that's just looking nice. Unfortunately, I was also on the Joe Fixit Gray Hulk bandwagon. We came in a very distant third place at 13%. Green Hulk took this one with 61% of the vote. Just massive.
Yeah, it turns out Hulk smash.
Lou Ferrigno bringing it home. Next one was the best team. So this was our Fantastic Four X-Men mashup.
Good Lord. Now here it comes.
Andy and his Juggernaut team, Chad and his Jamie Madrox team, and me and my Mohawk Storm team, and it wasn't even close. Chad and Andy ended up dividing up the second place vote, and I took it home with almost 50%.
Your classic X-Men lineup.
Of course. I mean, who's gonna vote against the Chris Claremont, John Byrne X-Men? Yeah. That was totally cheating. My
Yeah.
idea was much better. I still stand by
Hey,
having Emma Frost and Juggernaut on the same team. Awesome sauce. And the Amazing Friends. Come on.
All I want to say is know your audience. So for those who didn't listen to the show, we had to pick an X-Men team that were sort of shaped like the Fantastic Four. So they needed to be sort of a family and have similar dynamics as the Fantastic Four. So I went with Storm, Kitty Pryde, Nightcrawler, and Colossus, and everyone agreed. Well, the majority agreed.
I was going to say, I tried the thing the X Office has been doing for years. I picked Wolverine, and who gave a crap about the rest? Wrong strategy. No, I thought my action figure displays would have swayed more votes my way, but not so much.
Yes.
All right. Last poll.
The last poll, and this was in honor of our Black Sad comic book, where there are anthropomorphic animals in a film noir setting, and the protagonist is a cat. We had, what is the best cat superhero / villain in, sort of mainstream comics? So the choices were Cheetah, Black Panther, Sabretooth, or Black Cat, and there was a caveat: Catwoman, while named a cat, has no actual cat powers, therefore she didn't get a vote.
I am surprised you didn't include Puma, because he's awful. In all the other polls, you have like the no prize, so I was like, you should have thrown Puma in there for that. But who won this?
Yeah, who's the cat's meow?
So the cat's meow was one Felicia Hardy, Black Cat, with 32% of the vote, but
Meow.
voting was very, very close on this one. Cheetah, who came in fourth, surprisingly, was at 18%. So there wasn't a lot of difference between first place and fourth place. Sabretooth coming in second place. Black Panther was at 22%. So really, this one was the most evenly divided of all the polls, mainly because I didn't have Puma in there as the throwaway.
Well, another character that you kind of overlooked, and we heard about it from a lot of folks, was Chitara from the Thundercats, who actually has been in comic books. So they had a legitimate kind of gripe with this list and not including, the fastest Thundercat of them all. She also had that bow staff and awesome flipping ability. That was great. I in retrospect, was said I would have voted for Chitara over a lot of these folks.
I'm still waiting for that Black Cat movie. I mean, forget these Venom movies. You could make a killer Black Cat movie these days.
Who do you think would play Black Cat if you were going to cast that, Chad?
No.
You know who I'm going to pick, because I love her, is the Alexandra Daddario.
Who?
She was in the Percy Jackson movies. She was the Rock's daughter in San Andreas, and she was in the season 1 of True Detective, and she may have been the most beautiful Hollywood actress I've seen since Cindy Crawford.
Wow. High praise from Chad. All right, well, he's got his Black Cat pick. We'll see if eventually they make that movie, if Chad gets his pick. But one thing that you're always going to get a pick from is our Read Pile review, and it's coming up right after these messages. We're going to pick a book, and we're going to review it, so stay tuned for that. What's in future?
I still want to know who your Black Cats are. I got my Black Cat. Who's your Black Cat?
Coming to you live from whatever podcast you're currently listening to. It's your boy Jay West with my co-host Mac East from the We Get Dub podcast.
What up, nerds? It's me, Mac East, and we got a badass anime podcast for you. We got hot sauce, we got hot takes, we got booze and banter.
And you can listen to us on all major platforms.
The We Get Dub podcast hits harder than a Goku gut punch.
Did the Iron Fist Netflix series leave a bad taste in your mouth? Are you caught up in the hype of Shang-Chi and the Legends of the Ten Rings? Have you ever wondered what these characters' true origins and adventures are like, but you don't have the time to read through hundreds and hundreds of issues? Then subscribe to the Deadly Podcast of Kung Fu, where I, JVD, traverse the continuity of Marvel's most prolific martial artists in Iron Fist and Shang-Chi. Each week I break down a story arc and discuss the good and the bad within the pages to save you hours of reading through comics so you can focus on the best of which each character has to offer. New episodes drop every Wednesday for you to listen to on your way to your local comic book shop to pick up your pull list.
All right, we're back with more of The Last Comic Shop, and it is now time to do our Read Pile Review. That segment we like to have on every single show where we tell you about a comic book that we read recently that maybe you should check out at your local comic book shop. And on today's program, again, going along with that theme of Halloween and creepy, crawly things, we're doing zombies and the undead. And undead monarchs that are also fictional, that might be based on real kings or something like that. It is Once and Future. And J.A., who did this tremendous series?
So, Once and Future is written by Kieran Gillen, illustrated by Dan Moore, and they were the creators. They were the really driving force on this one. Coloring was Tamra Bonvillain. And lettered by Ed Dukeshire, and this is out of Boom Studios. That's Boom Studios.
There you go. And Boom Studios is awesome. If I haven't gushed about how great Boom Studios is, I'm going to do it right now before we get started. Boom puts out excellent books. I first found Boom Studios because they did a lot of great Planet of the Apes books back in the day. They also did a wonderful Darkwing Duck series for a while. They did Grass Kings, which I've recommended on this program before. It just seems like every time I turn around, Boom's doing something great. Chad, you've read a bunch of Boom books that you've liked over the years.
No, the cool thing about Boom Studios is they seem to be that comic book company that's able to diverge from the superhero genre and do it well. Like, Image, I feel like, can do that for a little bit, but they always tend to fall back on those superhero books. You get your IDWs that end up with your licensed stuff. But, like, Boom really has original creative properties that aren't superheroes, that are just really, really good comics.
Yeah. Speaking of this particular comic, Once and Future, give us the 10-cent synopsis there, Chad.
So, we're all familiar with the legend of King Arthur. And you know how he's said to return in Britain's darkest hour? Well, like one character in this book says, never trust a prophecy that can be taken two different ways. And so what if King Arthur was the cause of Britain's darkest hour? Dun, dun, dun! Because he's a zombie! Dun, dun! And he's bringing zombie knights with him! Dun, dun, dun! And there's swords and more zombies and blood spray and ooey gooey stuff, and there's a family with a badass Aunt May and a redheaded Peter Parker with Clark Kent glasses, and they're running around trying to stop the zombies, and occasionally there's this giant snake monster that just keeps coming back, and there's all sorts of madness that ensues, but it's all set in present day, but loosely based on Arthurian legend, so you think you might know what's going on, but then you don't know what's going on, but then you know what's going on whenever it happens. It's real fun.
What I like is that they even play with, everyone thinks they know the history and the legend of King Arthur, and then they're like, oh, that's Excalibur. No, that's not Excalibur. Excalibur is not the sword of the stone. That's something else. You're confusing it. But then the legend itself gets confused because they're rewriting the legend now.
That's it. And there's so many different versions of these myths that they're like, yeah, it's not that one. It's this other one. Who knows? Maybe it's the other one. We don't know. It's fun.
We should say that the grandson, right? Not redheaded because this is Britain. He's ginger.
That's true.
Oh, okay.
It's the Percival stand-in, the virginal youth raised by women in the middle of the woods that will come to, I don't know, claim the sword instead of Galahad, who's like, I don't know, the
son of Gawain, who doesn't show up.
And that was a very, is it Macbethian? Where, like, you know, the man not one of woman born type machinations to have him be raised by women.
No, but what I love is it kind of leads to one of my favorite lines in the entire first trade, which is what we're covering today. It's just the first trade of Once and Future. It goes on for quite a lot, but I think it's like basically the first 6 issues. But within it, there's a great line where, I don't know, somebody reminds King Arthur who Galahad actually is. Hey, remember that one time when your wife, Roger the Frenchman? He's like, what happened? I didn't remember this. He gets all pissed. It's the best because, like, of course, like, you know, he's remembering how, you know, Lancelot and Guinevere just like laid down together and had some babies, and so it was, it's interesting stuff. And I do want to get JA's thoughts initially, because like during our pre-show review, he immediately after reading this was like, do we have more of this? Because I can't stop. And so I want to find out why he liked it so much.
I think I liked it because it was really well done non-superhero comics. I mean, we've been reading a lot of non-superhero comics lately, but they have been very serious and heavy and sort of, not in the action-adventure genre. So here was a comic book that is not dealing with superheroes, but is still, action-adventure. There's fight scenes, there's zombies, there's bad guys, there's good guys, there's intrigue. I liked how they set up the plot with Duncan. Duncan is the ginger Percival character. He's been going through his life not knowing that he is the hero and that his grandmother descends from this line of zombie killers who live forever and knows magic and keeps a trunk buried in the woods with guns, vampire guns, to kill vampires. Well, why don't we need that? Because I've killed them all already, he said. I want to know that story, by the way. So the art was fresh. The storytelling was fun. I thought the writing was witty. It was really easy to read. You got through it quickly. It was a different take. I liked that it took place in England and it involved all these different myths that you kind of know, especially, growing up in America or England or Great Britain. You probably are aware of these myths. Probably anyone is. If you've seen that horrible Richard Gere movie First Night, you at least know some of this.
Arthurian legends. Every generation gets their own version of the Arthurian legends. It's more than just Richard Gere, but go ahead.
Richard Gere and Sean Connery, I think, wearing a toupee, wasn't he?
Yeah, it was.
So I like the idea of anytime you're in modern day and you've got access to all these guns and weapons, so you're putting together a bomb that has C4, but it also has like witch's brew and eye of newt and a little bit of saltpeter and all these other things to not only blow something up, but also spread all this like anti-monster dust on it.
Yeah, that's another great line in here where she's like, what kills vampires?
Oh, right, a stake through the heart.
Yeah, a stake through the heart kills a lot of things. So, yeah, no, I love this book too. For one reason, there's a badass grandma. And you can't go wrong with a badass grandma. At one point, she shoots her grandson just to show that she's not fooling around. That was great. I loved how she threatens people in the old folks' home when they go to change the channel. She's like, you can change it, but I'm going to break all your fingers. And it's just like, whoa, that is awesome. You don't get to see that every day. And then, as I alluded to in my over-anxious synopsis, it is fun to see those King Arthur myths played with in a different way than you traditionally see. Like, I've seen those myths manipulated, whether for comedy with the Monty Python stuff, or sometimes they go into horror. But this is the first time I've ever seen King Arthur not as savior, but as somebody bringing about the downfall. And that was it was really cool to watch that happen. As Jay alluded to, Dan Mora's art is fast-paced, action-packed. And all I kept thinking as I was reading this, and even I stumbled into volume 2, is like, as an action figure nerd, like this would make the perfect action figure line between the zombies, the knights that are zombies, the badass grandma with guns. There are just so many fun characters in here that, literally would just be fun to play with. And so it's one of those things where a lot of people, they make comic books as movie pitches or show pitches, which I don't think that's what this is. But boy, would I love it to be picked up so we could get that extra stuff to go along with it. And you feel it's almost a little literary. You got the Arthurian legends in there.
Yeah, I was just thinking when you said action figures, I could just see the action gimmick now. The head pops off and you're slicing the zombie knight.
That's right.
Well, I'm going to jump in here real quick because I think Chad mentioned something that I want to kind of sort of disagree with. Just one thing, and it's the fact that he kind of mentioned, like, he didn't see this as potentially R&D for a TV show or a movie. honestly, when I was reading this trade, that's actually all I saw. Nowadays, we're so used to that, right? When an independent comic book comes out and you're like, how are they going to make this be the next TV show, next animated series, the next movie? Because that's where the dollars are. Like, you're not going to really make the money off of the comic book itself. You're going to get it when it goes big, and everybody's watching that streaming show on Netflix or Amazon Prime or wherever it happens to be. And that's what I really thought with this series. Like, I'm like, this is Dan Mora and Kieran Gillian's like pitch to be like, hey, make this into a show. We got action. We got awesome Arthurian legends that everybody knows about. We got a badass grandma that can be played by awesome people. We got this awesome, like, handsome ginger dude.
We have a badass grandma that can be played by one person. We all know it's going to be played by Helen Mirren. But forget anybody else. It's going to be Helen Mirren.
It would be great as Helen Mirren, but you know who it's really going to be?
Marissa Tomei.
It'll be Marissa Tomei. It's supposed to be this older, elderly woman. They'll get Marissa Tomei still at the height of her hotness to play grandma, because that's how Hollywood works.
But she's not British.
Yeah,
doesn't matter.
The Helen Mirren does make more sense, but that's what I thought, and I think that's why I'm going to ding it a little bit. Both of what you guys said was part of why I'm not going to say I wasn't feeling this book, because I will say the art is tremendous. The action scenes are great. There's a great scene where basically Duncan is catapulted into this weird world, like where he has to survive, and this quest monster comes after him, and he picks up this big log and jams it into the monster's throat. It was awesome to see. Like, I was like, yeah, that's exciting. Like, that's action paced. So the art in this book is tremendous. But at the same time, I just couldn't shake this feeling that it was kind of like, maybe I've seen this before, or maybe this is all just R&D for some sort of TV show. And I don't know, it just kind of felt like I was maybe I'm used to these other serious books we've been covering. And I was just like, I don't know, like there was something about this.
No, I agree with you while still taking the totally opposite position. I can't believe you didn't love King Arthur as Skeletor. Like, that is awesome. And so we often talk about independent books, right? And what's the biggest challenge that independent books face, you think, in getting an audience and hooking an audience?
The world building, probably. Like, if they do it well, then that's great. And you're right, they do it fairly well in this.
Yeah.
But they do, and not only that, but they take those familiar characters. So many times we pick up a Spider-Man book or a Batman book because it has Spider-Man or Batman, and we know that. And so that gives us that easy in. So they're still using that easy in by accessing these Arthurian legends, but they're turning it on its head by making them the bad guys. And so it's instantly relatable. It's instantly like, oh, okay, you've got my attention. And then it turns out the rest of it is so well done. Who cares if it's a pitch? Like, I want to see it.
Yeah. And to that point on the world building, what I really love about it is this first trade we read works well as a standalone. So it tells a complete story, but it doesn't feel like that's the end and they would just be adding something on in part 2 that wouldn't make sense. It's so well conceived, the world building, that, as I mentioned and as Chad said he also went on to, you can see that, oh, what happens in the next part? What other adventures do they get up to? How else do these evil ghosts try to come and take over England in this day and age? And when are the Scots and the Welsh going to get involved? Yeah. Because that's when the shit really gets good.
Spoiler alert: Beowulf. Beowulf. Sorry, you're gonna have to bleep that. Beowulf.
But I will say this. I mean, and did you not feel it was just a little bit tropey with, like, guy that doesn't know anything, then badass grandma that's keeping all these secrets from him, and then he gets involved with the secret society, mom he didn't even know he had. Like, didn't it seem like they were retreading?
I already told you, yes, they're doing that, but they're doing it so well.
See the enthusiasm. It's hard to fight against you guys because the enthusiasm's there. So they are doing something right. If you guys are excited about this book, like, regardless of my nitpicking, it's got to be okay, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the Bob Ross of zombie Arthurian legend books, It's just full of happy little zombies.
That's right. And Aunt May's with AKs.
That's true. Well, I think we'll just get to our commercial break. We'll get our ratings. I think we've talked about what we liked about this book, what we didn't like about this book, but let's see how those ratings kind of go from this point. So stay tuned. More Last Comic Shop right after these commercial breaks. How Once and Future made the grade.
Have you ever found yourself confused about the current state of the MCU or whatever the hell is happening with the DC universe?
Do you often have no idea what the hell the difference is between craft beer and that Bud Ice stuff at the gas station?
Well, then look no further.
We present to you Hops Geek News.
We're yet another geek and beer podcast in an already oversaturated market.
All right. We drink and we pretend we know things.
More often than not, we don't really know things, but we do talk some really great topics, and we most definitely can drink.
We'll deliver you news and then dive into any random topic you might have never knew you actually were passionate about.
With lots of fun facts about beer.
And from Marvel to DC and Star Wars, and to why Die Hard is most definitely a Christmas movie.
Which it is. Basically anything that our spouses are sick of hearing us talk about. Join us on YouTube or anywhere you listen to podcasts.
New episodes weekly. Just search Hops News.
All right, we're back with more of The Last Comic Shop, and it is now time for our rating. That famous part of our show where we assign numerical value to somebody's creative work in a way that is hopefully fair and impartial, but it's usually just like whether we like something or not.
Yeah, always partially partial.
But something that always happens is J.A. Scott gives us an interesting way to rate our book every single week. So, J.A., what is our rating scale for this week?
Well, we're going to go 1 out of 4 Knights of the Round Table.
Yes.
That means, I guess, if you don't have a whole number, you're like cutting a knight in half or something. So maybe he's lost an arm, but don't worry, it's only a flesh wound.
All right.
Do we have any black knights at the table?
We'll go to J.A. Scott since it was his rating scale. How many Knights of the Round are you giving this?
I'm giving it the full 4 Knights of the Round Table. I really love this book. We mentioned the beautiful artwork and the writing. I thought was on. I just love the writing and not just the plotting and sort of the big elements, but even just the dialogue bits. So when they're going into the gates of hell to fight the Arthurian these zombie knights and zombie King Arthur, but somebody's got to stay behind so that they can come back to present day. And the grandma is explaining to this woman, so do you know the whole thing about Theseus and the labyrinth and the Minotaur and the string? She goes, yeah. He goes, well, he's Theseus, you're the string. And she's like, yeah, what about the Minotaur? She goes, oh, don't be so literal. It was a fun read. I sat down, I plowed through it in probably an hour, and it was akin to watching an unexpected, really good action-adventure movie that you had no idea what you're getting into. You just went into the movie theater, and 2 hours later you come out with some popcorn butter on your shirt and a big smile on your face because you just were blown away by something that you were completely unexpected.
Okay, I'll go next. And I'm kind of torn because there's a part of me that loves this, which I don't know if you could pick up on my earlier review, that thinks this is so much fun and this is just good comic booking. Kieran Gillen is a masterful writer in that he has not only the dialogue, like Jay was alluding to, he has those clever moments in the plot where you think you know what's coming, but then you don't know what's coming. But then after he explains, like, no, I was thinking that was coming. And like, you never feel totally lost in the woods, but you're never totally comfortable either. The character work in here is really great, whether it's the girlfriend, whether it is the mother who has basically abandoned her family, whether it is the grandfather who we meet and find out what's happened to him and what steps grandma took to ensure that some of this process wouldn't go through. It's all interesting. At the same time, I don't know if it's a 4, just because I feel like sometimes it was a little darker, and by darker, I don't mean like dark and scary. I just mean a little bit more muddled than it needed to be. I feel like there were a handful of sequences where it could have been more crisp. but also that's part of the ambiance. And so, I don't know. Can I say a 3.9? I'm going to go really obnoxious. I want to take just a little sliver off, a little slice of the ear.
So the knight lost his pinky, essentially.
Yeah. So just one small flesh wound. But I think overall it's great work, and I'd highly recommend it. And like Jay said, it is lots of fun. It's something you can just pick up and read and enjoy. And it's comic books at their finest.
Okay. Well, I think I'm going to be the most critical of this book. Again, there was just something about it. I think I'm going to go maybe a 2.9. It's not even a 3. And I think that's just simply because for me, maybe I was expecting a little bit more. I remember when Chad first initially pitched this, he's like, it's going to be zombie King Arthur. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's going to be awesome. And if it was just based on the artwork alone, I think it measured up to that. Dan Mora's art is tremendous. It's very, very kinetic. There's a lot of great, to J.A.'s point, action scenes that seem very cinematic and do kind of drive the story forward. But they're just seemed to be something that was a little bit off. It just at times felt a little too trophy for me. Tropey in I've seen this a bunch of times before with, again, hero that doesn't know what the heck is going on and has been kept in the dark for so many years and has this, older, mentor coming in. And I guess that's because in the essence, this is the Arthurian legend, right? Whether Duncan is actually playing the King Arthur person and the grandma is his Merlin, you kind of have that same storyline going on here, and all you can kind of compare it to is the original Arthurian legend. I'm like, well, the original is still better. So this is kind of a retelling of that, and I'm just I'll just read the original Arthurian legends. Plus, I've read some more interesting versions of this. I'm a huge fan of Camelot 3000, which deals with the Arthurian legends, and I think that's a much better book than this. But at the same time, it's not a bad book. I don't want anybody to come away thinking I'm just slamming it, because it's great. This, to Chad's point, is good comic book read. If you need just a series to pick up and read on a random Saturday afternoon, pick this up. It's still worth your time. I just don't think it's in that higher echelon of other books that I've read, especially books that we've read on this show. I have to be honest, compared to some of the other ones, Monsters that we've read or Black Sad. I don't know. This doesn't measure up to that. But some other books you might want to check out on a Saturday afternoon when you have some free time is some of our recommendations. Ta-da! Books you can find at your local comic shop in addition to Once and Future.
We like to recommend something similar, something that's pretty recent, and something maybe a little bit out of left field or off the beaten path, or in this case, from Arthurian legend. And I will kick it off this week. I am doing something a bit similar in that it's swords and sorcery, but maybe it's out of left field too because it's not King Arthur. It is King Conan. And I am recommending the first part of the Conan Chronicles, which has been condensed into an epic collection back in 2019. This is the 2004 Kurt Busiek, Fabian Nicieza, Carrie Nord run of Conan. And my God, if you're only buying it for Carrie Nord, then it's worth it. But Kurt Busiek is just a fantastic writer. It's fantastic Conaning, but the artwork is epic. It is stunning. Every page looks like it was done by N.C. Wyeth. It looks like it's oil paintings, and it just fits perfectly in that world of sorcerers and swashbuckling heroes and scantily dressed buxom women needing help and men with no armor fighting against heavily clad frost giants.
Oh, yeah. No, I love Carrie Nord art. And everybody that's worked on that book is awesome. But Carrie Nord in particular, I found during superhero books on Daredevil. But man, did he hit his stride with that Conan stuff. It is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I have a real quick question for you, J.A. Does Carrie Nord beat out Barry Windsor Smith for your favorite Conan, or is Barry Windsor still on top?
Ooh, you know what? I think Carrie Nord might have taken top spot.
Wow.
That's big.
Well, if you like his work on Conan, since you're a huge Valiant fan, you should check out his run on Exo Manowar. He was one of the first artists to actually have an exclusive contract with Valiant, and he was actually the guy that basically helped relaunch Valiant with that Exo Manowar book back in 2012. So yeah, you should check that one out too as a side recommendation.
Whoa, recommendation of recommendation.
There you go.
Whoa.
But a main recommendation is Chad's pick, I think, which actually deals with Arthurian legends,
That's right. I'm going to go with something similar, and I'm going to pick the low-hanging fruit that is Camelot 3000 by Mike W. Barr and Brian Bolland. It came out in the early 80s. It took quite some time. It was actually one of the first maxi series ever released. It was 12 issues. As something related, as this is an exploration as well of the Arthurian legends set in the future, where once again characters are reincarnated. One's a samurai, one's like industrialists, and some of them are, South African family men, and some of them are just crazy pants. And so it's fun to watch that play out. But really, the reason why you buy the ticket to that particular show is the Brian Bolland art. And it is just absolutely gorgeous. Well, he was the first guy I remember ever taking superheroes and superhero comics and adding that touch of realism where you would see the lines in the fabric or see like the laugh lines on a superhero's face, like that kind of stuff. Like his art is that detailed and that handsome. But with Camelot 3000, he gets to explore that along with all these knightly tropes and along with all this weird sci-fi alien invasion aspects. And it's a sight to behold. It's a little bit more dense than Once and Future, a little bit tougher to dig into, but once you're there, it's definitely a tale that's worth your time. It is Camelot 3000.
Yeah, and it's widely available. You can still get it in single issues. In a lot of buck bins I've seen it's still available. And they've got a lot of different trades out of that. I feel like every single time that I go to a comic book show, I always find a copy of Camelot 3000 in somebody's bin going for $5, $10. And every single time I see it, I tell whoever I'm with, oh, you got to pick up that. You just got to pick it up. Don't worry about it. Just pick it up. Put it with your collection. You owe it to yourself to own a copy of Camelot 3000. It's that good.
Yeah, it's one of the first mashups I can remember seeing of the medieval, the highly like technological stuff. And like as a kid, I was like, this is crazy. And then the story is a little bit more adult. So as a kid, I was like, I'm not sure about a lot of this, but still, definitely worth your time.
Well, for my recommendation this week, with the current pick, I'm going back to the whole notion of how hard it is when you have an independent book and you're trying to world build, and how some folks do it right and some folks do it wrong. But one person that definitely did it right and hit a home run recently was Jeff Johns, who everybody knows from his wonderful work on DC with either The Flash or the Green Lantern or Teen Titans. All these great books that Jeff Johns has worked on. Now he's bringing his talents to his own universe. And he's joining forces with a great artist in Gary Frank. And they put out a tremendous 6-issue run of Geiger, which has just been blowing up out there on the comic stands over the past summer. And if you haven't read Geiger, you owe it to yourself to check it out, because it is really the beginning of what could be called the Geiger-verse. By the end of the 6-issue run, you find out that this Geiger character, again, set in post-apocalyptic America where the atom bombs have fallen and everybody has to wear radiation chutes and everything like that. Geiger is a guy that's kind of like a weird muscular solar man of the atom. Like he has nuclear powers, but then punches people and has awesome fighting sticks that are made out of barium rods. He's got a cool backstory in which his sacrificed himself to save his family, who were, put into a fallout shelter and ended up, dying or whatever. And he didn't even know about it. And he ends up saving this teenager and her younger brother who ran away from Las Vegas, that's been set up as kind of like this feudal kingdom run by all the casinos. And he has like a 2-headed dog. It's just a great series, but it kind of reminded me of like the beginnings of the Valiant universe, in which you got like a core character, right? Like you got a core person that's really interesting. This Geiger character, he's got a great look by Gary Frank. He's got these awesome superpowers, and he can punch through trucks and vans and whatever. And he's got a lot of pathos to him. He's just a great kind of Wolverine, reluctant hero kind of type character. But from there, you just build out. By the end of it, you got this guy named Junkyard Joe, which is kind of like a robot character, and they're going to introduce other characters like the Red Coat, who's an immortal, and some other person that's a ghost. And it just makes you feel like you're at the beginning of something great. And so, like, you should pick up these 6 issues of Geiger. It's got great art. It's got a great initial universe building, and you kind of feel like you're getting in the ground floor.
Yeah, I've not checked it out yet, but you have spoken so highly of it. I definitely need to track down some Geiger stuff soon.
I have to admit, I'd never heard of it, and I didn't know where you were going. And I heard Geiger, and I was like, is that like alien type stuff? And then when you said post-apocalyptic with the atom bombs, I'm like, that Geiger.
Yes, like a Geiger counter. He gives off radiation. He can burn through things. Like he puts his fist through like a steel door, and it just burns away. And he can't get too hot because he can't control his powers without his awesome barium rods that he uses as fighting sticks. And he's got a 2-headed wolf. It's awesome. And something else that's awesome is The Last Comic Shop. You can listen to us every single week by going out to our fantastic website, www.lastcomicshoppodcast.com, and rate, reviewing, and subscribing to any of that myriad of places that you can find our podcast, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Podcast, Pandora, and a variety of other places. And if you like our show, then you should give us a treat this Halloween season by leaving us a 5-star review. Do it! And we won't toilet paper a house. Let's just say that. But no, seriously, if you like what we're laying down, if you like the comic book recommendations and reviews that we give you every single week, if you have found, books based on our recommendations and stuff, let us know. And how can they let us know, Chad?
They can let us know on social media platforms like Twitter and Instagram, where they can find us at Last Comic Shop, or on Facebook at Last Comic Shop Podcast.
Yeah, and make sure that you are checking us out on Twitter again every Wednesday for those weekly polls that J.A. Scott loves to put out at Last Comic Shop on Twitter.
And all those links are available on our website, as well as one to our merchandise store, where you can get the latest Last Comic Book swag. While we don't have any Knight's armor this week, we do have a special out for the holidays, just in time for Halloween, on a new design, a new spooky Last Comic Book Shop inspired t-shirt.
And it does look really great. It's going to be only available until Halloween, so make sure that you get out to the website, pick up that shirt. It's almost like a limited edition. It's like a variant cover of the Last Comic Shop. Get yours today.
Yeah.
It'll be one of those foil embossed chromium 1990s jobby things. Sealed in a bag.
Yeah, it'll be sealed in a bag. And while we may be the Last Comic Shop podcast, we actually don't want to be the Last Comic Shop. So we appreciate it if everyone goes out and finds a local shop near you to support, where you can perhaps pick up things like Conan Chronicles, Camelot 3000, or the latest issues of Geiger. You don't know how to or where your local comic shop is? You can always use the Comic Shop Locator, www.comicshoplocator.com.
All right. And make sure that you tune in for the rest of the month of October, because we're going to have some other awesome kind of creepy books out there. Next week, it's My Favorite Thing is Monsters by Emil Ferris. And we've also got the new Dune series, the Dune House Atreides, right in time for the Dune movie. That will be coming soon as well. And until next week, I was the host with the most, Andy Larson. I was joined by Chad Smith and J.A. Scott. And remember to stay safe, stay sheltered, and remember that strange women lying in ponds distributing swords is no basis for a form of government.
I feel oppressed.
Bloody peasant!
Bring out your dead!
The Last Comic Shop was a 2021 Black Angus production.